Welcome to week 2. In week 2, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be removing some of this information. That way, each week we'll have a little less and less, so you'll have to remember more and more. And then in the first half of September, we'll send out a little Google form. There'll be a quiz there for you to take, so we can get an idea of how well you guys are learning this. Now, before we get started, there are three parts of a note that you need to look for to help you identify the note. All right, we're going to review those real quick. So take a look at this first thing. The round part down here is called the note head. If you have a note head, then you can have a note. But if you do not have a note head, there's no note. It doesn't matter if that note head is hollow like this one, or if it's filled in like that one. It doesn't matter if it's just a note head with nothing else. As long as you have a note head, you have a note. So take a careful look at the note head. It tells us an awful lot about what kind of note it is. Now, after the note head, we can add a stem. Do we need a stem? No, we do not need a stem. For example, take a look. This whole note does not have a stem, and yet it is still a note. All right? Now, after the stem, we can add a flag. Do we need to have a flag? No, we don't need to have a flag. Matter of fact, up here, the only note that has a flag is this 8th note right here. All right? So being able to take a look at the note head, is it hollow or is it filled in? The stem, does it have one? Does it not have one? And the flag, does it have one or not have one? You can tell the difference between all 4 of these notes. And that's why it's key to know that the round part is called the note head. The line that goes up or down is called a stem. And this little part right here is called a flag, all right? You can have more than one flag, but in our class, we're only going to worry about one flag. All right, so that's what we got. Now let's review the notes. I'm going to erase some of the information and give you a quick practice quiz that no one's grading. It's just a chance for you to see if you've studied the information well enough. All right, so take a look at this round note right at the top. It looks like I drew a hole, just a hole. Right? There's no stem or anything. It's just like I just drew a picture of a hole up there. That is called a whole note. Excellent. And how many beats does it get in 4/4 time? It gets 4 beats. That's going to become very important later on in the year. Now, if we take the whole note and add a stem, that's this line right here, add a stem to it. Doesn't matter if the stem's going down or the stem's going up. You can flip that thing all the ways around, however you want to. It still stays the same. That whole note becomes a half note, all right? And a half note gets half as many beats. So we go from 2, you cut 4 into half, and we go from 4 down to 2. So a half note gets how many beats in 4/4 time? That is correct. It gets 2 beats, all right? Now when we color in the note head, right, then we get a note called a quarter note. What's the name of that note? That is right, a quarter note. All right, and a quarter note gets 1 beat. For example, since it's half the size of a half note, if a half note gets 2 beats, and I cut that in half, I get 1 beat. Then finally, if we take this flag and add that to a quarter note, we get a different note, and the name of that note is the 8th note. What's the name of that note? That's right, an 8th note. And an 8th note gets half of a beat in 4/4 time. So, for example, by adding that flag, every time we add something, it cuts the note value in half. By adding that flag, we take a 1, and when we move that in half, we don't get 0, we don't get 2, we get half, just like I'm showing half of a finger right here, okay? So, whole note, half note, quarter note, 8th note. All right? And I'm going to go ahead and erase those names real quick, and then we're going to practice this in random. All right, so if it has a solid note head and a stem, these notes right here, what is the name of that note? I'll give you 3 seconds. If you said a quarter note, you are correct. Awesome. And how many beats does a quarter note get in 4/4 time? It gets 1 beat. Awesome. All right, let's take a look at this note right here, okay? It is just a note head, a big hollow note head. It looks like I drew a hole on the board. All right. So what is the name of that note? I'll give you 3 seconds. All right. If you said it is a whole note, W-H-O-L-E, you are correct. All right. And how many beats does a whole note get in 4/4 time? It gets 4 beats. It takes up all 4 beats. It takes up the whole measure, and that's why we call it a whole note. All right, let's take a look at this one right down here. It has a solid note head, a stem, and a flag. I'll give you 3 seconds to guess why that is. Here it goes. And if you guessed an 8th note, you guessed correctly, all right? If it has a solid note head, a stem, and a flag, it's the smallest note that we are going to study this year, and it's called an 8th note. And an 8th note gets how many beats in 4/4 time? Half a beat. That is correct. And then last, but definitely not least, is this note right here. It is a hollow note head with a stem. A hollow note head with a stem. What's the name of that note? I'll give you 3 seconds. All right, if you guessed half note, then you guessed correctly. All right, how many beats does a half note get in 4/4 time? It gets 2 beats. All right, and that's going to be our lesson for this week. Make sure you can tell the difference between a note head, a stem, and a flag, because that's what makes it easiest to see which each one of these different notes are. Take a look at your study picture that I gave you last week. That will help you too. Next week, we're going to take away the counts. You're going to have to tell me the name of the note and the counts, and that's what we have for this week. Thank you all for signing in, and I hope to get to see you in person real soon.